Ash Hollow, Arizona Territory. Late summer of 1809. The train exhaled steam as it eased into the lonely outpost, its steel wheels screeching across the rails with a sharp, metallic wail. Wind stirred fine, red dust across the wooden deck, the air heavy with grit and heat. Ash Hollow was barely more than a pinprick on the map. One supply shack, one whiskey haul, a watering post the railroad usually forgot. The sun drooped low, painting the horizon copper, and rose as the land stretched dry and endless. When the iron doors of the locomotive moaned open, a young woman stepped down. Clara Penrose clutched her small leather satchel with gloved fingers. Her boots still carried the polish of Philadelphia-esque cobblestones, and her traveling coat, though worn from days of motion, was still too fine for such a rugged edge of the world. She blinked into the sunlight, half expecting a man holding a placard, perhaps even whispering her name. But there was no one waiting, just a pair of ranch hands dragging crates, too busy to notice her. Her heart sank. She stepped cautiously onto the platform, her skirt catching dust like an old memory. The letter tucked inside her handbag promised she would meet a man named Martin Ellery in a town called Stonebrook. She had studied that letter for months, kept it like a vow. But now, with the desert wind tugging at her hat and the empty station staring back at her, the words on that page felt smudged and uncertain. The map sheet followed had a rip right across the name of the town. Clara scanned the barren platform again. Was this Stonebrook? Or had she stepped into the wrong place entirely? Her pulse quickened. She had traveled so far. What if her chance had slipped away before it even began? Then came a sound, a tiny gasp, then the patter of hurried footsteps. Before Clara could turn, two small arms wrapped tight around her waist. She looked down, startled. A girl no older than 6, with curls the color of desert honey and cheeks streaked with tears, clung to her, as though she had found a miracle. "Mama," the child whispered, trembling with joy. "God finally sent you." Clara froze, too stunned to move. The little girl pressed her face into Clara's traveling skirt, gripping hard as though she might vanish if she let go. "Rosie." A man's voice cut through the moment, steady but edged with concern. Clara lifted her gaze. A tall figure strode across the platform, dust-covered boots, worn jeans, broad shoulders under a faded green shirt. His face bore the weathering of sun and hard work. His jaw was set tight as he reached for the girl. He slowed when his eyes met Clara's. "I am sorry, ma'am," he said, kneeling to gently loosen the child's grip. "She gets confused sometimes." The girl sniffled, looking up at him. "But she looks like Mama," she murmured. The man gave Clara an apologetic glance, voice softening. "Hope she did frighten you." Clara shook her head slowly, heart still hammering. "No, just surprised." He stood, towering over them. "I am Lucas Carrick. This is my daughter, Rosie." Clara hesitated, then replied quietly, "Clara Penrose. I think I've gotten off at the wrong station." Lucas tilted his head. "Where were you bound?" "Stonebrook," she said, pulling the worn letter from her handbag. He took the envelope, gave it a quick glance, then raised a brow. "Ain't no town called Stonebrook round here, ma? Closest you get is Ash Hollow. That's this place." Clara stared at the empty plain. The truth dropped into her chest like a stone. "Then I am nowhere near where I am supposed to be." Lucas shook his head. "Numbers and trains, Don. Stop often out here. You might be stuck till morning." Clara's throat tightened. The sun was already dipping low, the station growing lonelier by the minute. There was no hotel, no lighted square, no carriage waiting to take her elsewhere. Just this man, his little girl, and a sky of rust and violet that offered no shelter. Lucas cleared his throat. "Look, I've got a wagon. Our place is a half-mile from here. Ain't much, but it is dry." He glanced at Rosie, whose eyes still clung to Clara's face. "My daughter won't quit asking if you don't come." Clara hesitated, torn between fear and exhaustion. She had traveled for days, held to letters and promises, only to end up in the wrong place entirely. And yet, standing there with a child, small hand reaching for hers, she felt something stir, a quiet pull. "Thank you," she said softly. "That would be very—" Rosie beamed and slipped her small fingers into Clara's hand. "I mean, Miss Clara," she whispered shyly. Clara smiled gently, giving her hand a squeeze. As the three walked off the platform, the train hissed one last time before rolling into the desert night. Clara stood between a man who hadn't expected her and a child who had claimed her without question. She had stepped off at the wrong station, yet as the horizon swallowed the trailing smoke, She wondered if she had just walked into the right story. The sun rose early over Ash Hollow, turning the prairie into a shimmering sea of gold. The Carrick homestead sat at its edge, a small house patched in places, its barn leaning but proud against the wind. Clara sat stiffly in a wooden chair, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. Across the table, little Rosie carefully buttered a piece of cornbread, curls bouncing as she hummed. She hadn't stopped smiling since dawn. Through the open window, Clara heard the steady crack of an axe. Lucas was outside splitting kindling, his strong frame moving in rhythm with each swing. The sound carried across the quiet land a reminder life here was hard but honest. Clara's eyes drifted to the mantel. A faded photograph in a carved wooden frame caught her eye. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile stared back. Clara did need to ask who she was. "That's my mama," Rosie said suddenly, following Clara's gaze. Her voice was soft but carried the weight of something older than her years. Her name was Hannah. She used to sing at night. I don't remember the songs anymore, but I remember her hands. They were soft like yours. Clara's chest tightened. She reached across the table, brushing Rosie's small fingers. "Do you miss her?" she asked gently. "Every day," Rosie whispered, then brightened. "But Papa says missing someone means they mattered." Clara smiled faintly, though her heart ached. Later, Clara stepped outside. Lucas was stacking wood, sweat shining on his brow. She hesitated. "Can I help?" He wiped his forehead. "You don't have to. You are a guest." "I'd rather be useful," Clara said. He thought a moment, then pointed to a basket of peaches. "Rosie and I were going to make a pie this afternoon. She is no good at peeling." Clara smiled. "That I can do." The day passed in quiet work, Clara peeling fruit at the porch table while Lucas repaired a fence post nearby. The land stretched silent except for the wind and the bray of their mule. After a while, Lucas spoke, his voice steady but low. "I was with the cavalry," he said, eyes still on the post. "Served 4 years. Got this place after the war." Clara glanced at him, surprised by his sudden openness. He kept talking. "My wife died here, giving birth to Rosie. Nothing I could do." Clara set down the knife, chest heavy. "I am sorry." He gave a short nod. "She was the only woman I ever loved. I figured I'd die a widower." Clara stayed quiet, sensing he wasn't done. "Rosie started praying every night," he said, "asking God for someone who could read her stories, braid her hair, hold her when it storms. I thought maybe I'd send for a bride. I even wrote a letter but never mailed it. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Clara asked softly. "That someone might come and I would. To have the heart to love them. Afraid I'd disappoint Rosie all over again." Clara swallowed, hands tightening around the peach. "And now?" she asked quietly. His gaze met hers, steady but searching. He did answer. That evening, Clara lingered at Rosie's doorway. The child knelt at her bedside, hands folded, eyes squeezed shut. "Dear God," Rosie whispered, "thank you for sending someone kind." "I know she was. Meant to come here, but maybe you knew Papa would ask, so you sent her anyway." Clara pressed a hand to her chest, tears burning her eyes. Downstairs, Lucas stood by the window, watching the prairie fade into darkness. He thought of his daughter's prayers, of a woman who had stepped off a train by mistake, and of a house that suddenly did feel so empty. Days slipped into a rhythm Clara had never known. She knitted dough at sunrise while Rosie chattered at her side. Lucas worked the fields with steady patience. Clara found herself humming as she cooked, laughing at Rosie antics and watching Lucas more than she meant to. One evening after supper, Clara sat mending one of Rosie's dolls by firelight. The little girl climbed into her lap. "Can you braid hair too?" Rosie asked. "Hopefully I can try," Clara said with a smile. She gently worked through the child's curls, humming an old lullaby. By the time Lucas stepped in from the barn, Rosie was asleep on Clara's shoulder. She asked if she could call me Mama. Clara whispered. Lucas's voice was low. "She's never asked anyone that before." Clara's eyes shimmered. Lucas stood silently, his heart pulled in ways he hadn't let himself feel for years, but the fragile peace broke when a carriage rolled up to the Carrick home. A tall woman in a plum coat stepped down, gloves spotless, gaze sharp. "I am Evelyn Gray," she announced briskly. "Your sister sent for me, said you needed a wife." Lucas stiffened. Clara stood in the doorway, apron still dusted with fluff. Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she looked her up and down. "And you are?" "Clara Penrose," Clara said quietly. "Ah," Evelyn smirked. "The help." "She's not the help," Lucas said firmly. She's our guest. Evelyn laughed coldly. Guest, that is one word for it. Clara's chest tightened. She quietly turned and went upstairs to gather her thing. Rosie followed, tugging at Clara's skirt. Dawn, go, the girl begged. You're my mama. Clara's throat ached, but she forced a smile. Be brave, sweetheart. She kissed Rosie's forehead, picked up her bag, and stepped toward the door. Lucas moved to walk her to the station. Evelyn's voice rang behind them, sharp and mocking. Really, Lucas, letting a child grow attached to someone so temporary is foolish. Lucas turned, his voice like stone. You don't belong here, and you never will. Clara kept walking, though her heart broke with each step. That night Rosie fell ill. Her small body burned with fever, clutching the half-finished scarf Clara had left. She would not eat, would not drink. She only whispered for her mama. By dawn, Lucas was riding hard toward the station, his coat carrying Rosie's scarf and a wildflower she had once picked. When he arrived, Clara was already on the platform, suitcase in hand, waiting for the train. Clara! He called, breathless. She turned, startled as he strode toward her. You weren't supposed to be here, he said, voice breaking. I know that, she said. But Rosie, she prayed for you. She is sick, crying for you. And I can't lose her hope. I can't lose you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I don't belong anywhere, Lucas. You do now? He said firmly. He held out the scarf. She made this for you, kept it close when you left. Maybe you stepped off at the wrong station, but it feels like you stepped right into our lives exactly when we needed you. The train whistled, wheels grinding. Clara looked at it, then back at Lucas. Slowly, she reached for the scarf and pressed it to her heart. The train rolled away without her. Weeks later, under the old oak on Carrick Land, Clara stood in a simple dress stitched by Rosie's small hands. Lucas took her calloused fingers into his own. There was no preacher, no ring, no crowd, only 3 people bound by a love unexpected but real. I can fix the world, Lucas whispered, but I can fix what is mine. If you let me, I'll spend my life mending every piece of your heart that thought it wasn't enough. Clara blinked back tears. I do. Rosie scattered petals in the grass, her laughter ringing out. She slipped her hands into theirs, looking up with shining eyes. You were mine now, both of you. Clara knelt, hugging her close. Lucas wrapped his arms around them both. For the first time in years, he felt whole. Clara smiled through her tears. I thought I was lost when I stepped off that train. Lucas kissed her forehead. You were found. And as the sun broke through the oak's branches, Clara knew she had finally arrived not at Stonebrook, but at home. If you felt something while reading this story, if Clara, Lucas, and Rosie touched your heart, please subscribe to my channel so you never miss these heartfelt journeys. Drop a like on this video too. It really helps me know you were out there. And truly, I'd love to hear from you what part of Clara's journey spoke to you most. Comment your thoughts below. I do read them all. Finally, if you enjoy stories of lost roads leading to unexpected homes, do subscribe once more so you were with us for the next chapter. Like this video, share it with a friend who loves Western-style romance. And let me know what you think down in the comments.